Hello, everyone, and welcome to the official recap of the 2024 Decade Dynasty Draft. It is a little later than I planned on recording this, however, still managing to get this out, still managing to get the coverage out, and honestly, this was a very exciting draft. Um, Before we get into this year's draft, I'm going to go over a little summary of last year, which ended up with the Hoagies being the champion of the league with a 13-1 regular season record, only losing one game throughout the entire season, including the playoffs. The runner-up was the Armada, finishing 11-3 during the regular season, not losing at all in the playoffs. Our player of the year was Christian McCaffrey, who was, of course, on the Hoagies. So he was dominant last year, as everybody who watches football knows, and really stood out from every other player in every other position. Uh, Going over all the teams from last year, the Hoagies, who were the champion, only their only loss came in week 9 of last season. They do have a history of winning leagues, so the Hoagies are a threat at all times in fantasy football. So we'll see how well they do this year, but last year's notable players included Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and Puka Nacua, all of which helped them get that dominant season. As mentioned, the runner-up in the league was the Armada at 11-3. They finished, once again, as the runner-up. They only lost to 2 total teams throughout all of last season, one of which being the Hoagies. Their notable players from last year were Josh Allen, Tyreek Hill, and Joe Mixon. In third place was the Meat Tanks, aka us. We finished at 8-6 last year, and we did manage to lose in the first round of the playoffs. Our team struggled a little down the stretch, but our notable players were Jalen Hurts, Kyron Williams, and A.J. Brown. What's notable about this team is we were the only team to beat the Hoagies, and we were the only team other than the Hoagies to beat the Armada. So, the unofficial Kingslayer of the league here. In fourth finished the Vigilantes at a 7-7 record. They lost in the second round of the playoffs to the Hoagies. Their notable players were CeeDee Lamb, Jordan Love, and Stephon Diggs. This team is very much known for going perpetually 500 with their record. Every single season in every single league, this team is 500. That's it. That's its floor and ceiling, 500. I would bet my life savings that it's going to happen again this year. And as the 5th seed was the Stone Oven Pizza People, who were formerly known as the Suplex Express. They finished at 6-8 and lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Vigilantes. Their notable players were Amon-Ra St. Brown, Travis Kelce, and Mike Evans. As the 7th seed was the 3-11 Snare Serpents. They did miss the playoffs, however they won in the consolation bracket. Their notable players were Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, and Tua Tagovailoa. Funny that they're all out of Miami. We'll just brush past that, though. There are some members from last year's league that are not going to be in this year's. There were some complications that rose up, so we had to find 2 new teams to replace them, being the Purloiner's Pride and the Rat Wizards. So we'll see how these 2 newcomers do in the league. We don't really know what to expect from them. However, we're expecting some fierce competition within the league this year. So going into the draft order, we have the Stone Oven Pizza People drafting first overall. Then we draft second. We draft with the second pick, followed by the Armada in third, Vigilantes in fourth, Purloiner's Pride in fifth, the Rat Wizards in sixth, Snare Serpents in seventh, and the Hoagies bringing up the rear with the 8th pick. Now, quickly before we get into the draft, I want to go over our draft settings and our roster settings because we do have something different from most other leagues. Like most other leagues, we have 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, and then instead of the normal flex position, we decided to try out the super flex this year, which is like the normal flex position. However, it allows you to put in a quarterback along with the normal receiver, running back, tight end options. So we also have one kicker, one defense. We have not implemented a defensive player position. However, that's something I would love to try out at some point. So moving forward, with the first overall pick, the Stone Oven Pizza people select quarterback Josh Allen. Now, with the Superflex position, that completely changes the draft order and the projected draft positions, with quarterbacks being a lot more valuable now that you can have two starting. So the Stone Oven Pizza people decide to go straight in and get the number one quarterback from last year, and I believe from the last couple years, actually. Finishing number one last year, number two the year before, and then number one the 2 years before that. So they get a very solid quarterback option here with the first overall pick. Moving into the second overall pick with our pick, we pick quarterback Jalen Hurts. He's out of Philadelphia, and while he did struggle down the stretch last year, he finished second overall for quarterbacks, third overall for quarterbacks the year before, and now he has probably the best weapons he has ever had in his career. He still has A.J. Brown, still has Devonta Smith, still has Dallas Goedert. They added in Saquon Barkley, though, who is going to be an insane piece to this offense. It is going to really add that wrinkle, which I think will help Hurts really improve and go further this year. With the third overall pick, we have the Armada. They decide to pick wide receiver Tyreek Hill out of Miami. An insane player, number two receiver last year, but has insane big play potential, and I would not be surprised to see him as receiver one this year. Good pick here for the Armada. As we go into the fourth overall pick from the Vigilantes, they select quarterback Joe Burrow. This is not surprising for the Vigilantes. Their GM is a big Joe Burrow fan and will always go out of their way to pick him. However, I don't think this is a bad place to do it. If they didn't take Burrow here, I'm not sure he would have been here for their next pick. And he's a very strong quarterback with some very strong weapons on his side. So I think not a bad pick. Maybe a little bit of a reach, but not bad overall. With the fifth overall pick, we have the newcomer Purloiner's Pride coming in and selecting quarterback Patrick Mahomes out of the Kansas City Chiefs. Probably the greatest quarterback in recent history. Not the greatest fantasy quarterback, though. Finished 8th overall last year, 1st overall in 2022 for quarterbacks. He gets big points, yes, but I wouldn't say that he's the best fantasy quarterback. He's going to be a good one this year. Don't get me wrong. Good pick here for the 5th pick. Not trying to talk down on it. It's a good pick. With the 6th overall pick, the second newcomer here, the Rat Wizards, select running back Christian McCaffrey, last year's player of the year, finishing not only 1st overall for running backs, but 1st overall for players in general, I believe. If not 1st overall for players in general, 1st overall for skill positions. Quarterbacks may have him beat, but still, Christian McCaffrey is going to be an incredible weapon for the Rat Wizards and will get them huge points going down the stretch of this season. With the 7th overall pick, the Snare Serpents come in and they select wide receiver C.D. Lamb, finishing receiver 1 last year out of Dallas, really coming into his own the last couple years. Genuinely, I'm kind of surprised to see him go this late. However, incredible pick by the Snare Serpents to take probably the best weapon that they could at this point instead of falling for the trap of reaching for some quarterbacks. With the 8th overall pick, we see the Hoagies come in here and they select quarterback Lamar Jackson. The reigning champion of the league, taking their quarterback one here with a very dynamic threat who should get them big points going forward, finishing fourth overall for quarterbacks last year, has hung around in that higher tier of quarterbacks, at least fantasy-wise, for a while, and really is expected to bring in a lot of points for this championship team to possibly get the repeat championship in. Moving forward, we see round 2 here. We're not going to cover every single pick going through the draft. We're just going to summarize each round like this. With the first pick of the second round, the Hoagies take tight end Travis Kelce. The second pick, the Snare Serpents take their first quarterback with Tua Tagovailoa. Third pick, the Rat Wizards take their first quarterback with C.J. Stroud. With the fourth pick, Amon-Ra St. Brown goes to Purloiner's Pride. The fifth pick sees Justin Jefferson going to the Vigilantes. And the sixth pick sees Breece Hall going to the Armada. Now, round 2 to 3, this is how we're going to go forward with this. We're going to show our pick and go more in depth about that because that's our perspective. That's who we can really get inside the minds of. Because the Stone Oven Pizza people are between our picks, they'll kind of be on the same slide as ours. So, with our second round pick, the 7th of the round, we select running back Saquon Barkley. Now that he's signed with Philadelphia, he really has the best opportunity to make a comeback in his career. He has the best offensive line he's ever played with by far, incredible receiving weapons, a strong quarterback to help relieve pressure from that running game, and really, I expect him to be a huge offensive weapon going forward. And maybe he'll help us get our first championship here, being such a strong weapon. With the 8th pick in the second round, the Stone Oven Pizza people take running back Bijan Robinson, who would have been our pick there if Saquon was gone. The first pick of the third round sees another running back going, and Jonathan Taylor also to the Stone Oven Pizza people. And with the second pick of the third round, we select quarterback Kyler Murray. This might be a strange pick here. However, Kyler Murray has always been a bit of a dynamic player, and I feel like when he's healthy, when he's focused, he can really be an incredible quarterback and get a lot of points on the board for us. Especially now that they have Marvin Harrison Jr., now that they have Trey McBride. Sorry, I couldn't think of his name. I feel like Kyler Murray is bound for a very strong season. And with Jalen Hurts in the main quarterback slot, I feel like having Kyler in the super flex is going to be an incredible tandem between those two. So looking to the rest of round 3, we see the Armada taking Dak Prescott at quarterback. The Vigilantes taking wide receiver Jamar Chase. So far with the LSU alum team. With the 5th pick, we see Purloiner's Pride taking Derrick Henry. Rat Wizards taking wide receiver A.J. Brown with the 6th pick. The 7th pick sees the Snare Serpents taking Travis Etienne. And the 8th pick sees the Hoagies taking running back Kyron Williams, the breakout from last year that was part of our team. The 4th round sees the Hoagies taking wide receiver Devontae Adams, the Snare Serpents taking wide receiver Stephon Diggs, quarterbacks Jordan Love and Brock Purdy going to the Rat Wizards and Purloiner's Pride respectively, running back Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Vigilantes, and wide receiver Garrett Wilson going to the Armada. Our round 4 pick, we are set at quarterback, so I'm not looking for anything there. We've got at least one strong running back now, so I thought we should get a strong receiver next. So we targeted wide receiver Mike Evans. He is aging. However, he is still on his insane streak of 1,000-yard seasons. Last year in PPR leagues, he finished 7th overall for receivers. He has only been outside the top 15 three times in his years playing in the league. Every single year he's had over 1,000 receiving yards. He is probably the most consistent receiver in the league right now, and I am more than happy taking him here in the 4th round to bolster this team a little more. With the 8th pick of the 4th round, the Stone Oven Pizza people take quarterback Justin Herbert, and the 1st pick of the 5th round they take running back Josh Jacobs. So with our fifth round pick, but with our 5th round pick, we decide to go out and take Devon Achane. Sorry if I butchered that name. It is a very interesting name. But either way, he is a blazing player for this Dolphins offense who, yes, they have a good running back duo in Achane and Mostert. However, Mostert is aging and Achane is really going into his sophomore year, I believe, right? Yeah, he's going into a sophomore year, and I feel like he's just going to get better and better. Last year, he was the 24th overall running back, playing in 11 games, had 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, and really was a very strong player when he played, and I expect to see more of that this year from him. Really, I expect to see a big step up in his play. So in the 5th round, we see running back Rachaad White, running back Isaiah Pacheco, wide receivers Puka Nacua and Brandon Ayuk, and quarterbacks Jared Goff and Matt Stafford going off the board. Round 6 starts off with wide receiver Deebo Samuel, then tight end George Kittle. Then we see running backs James Cook and Joe Mixon, quarterback Jaden Daniels going to the Vigilantes to really add on to that LSU alum theme they have going on. Then the 6th pick sees tight end Sam Laporta. Up to this point in the draft, our plan for the draft has been going incredibly well. All of the picks that we've wanted have been there on the board, including this one here, where we take tight end Dalton Kincaid out of the Bills. He is a very strong young tight end, and I don't think anybody can deny that he had a very strong year last year. In an offense where their number 1 receiver just got traded away, their number 2 receiver just left in free agency, and they have maybe Khalil Shakir along with Keon Coleman, the rookie, at receiver. I feel like Dalton Kincaid is going to get a lot of usage with Josh Allen here, and he is going to be an incredible piece for us in this season. With the 8th pick of the 6th round, we see wide receiver Michael Pittman go off the board to the Pizza People. And the 1st pick of the 7th round is wide receiver Cooper Kupp. This is where this is the first fault in our plan for this draft comes up. I was planning on taking Cooper Kupp with the next pick. I felt like having him and Mike Evans next to each other would have been an insane duo. However, the Pizza People had another plan. So we have to go to our backup strategy here and take, with the 2nd pick of the 7th round, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Arizona. He is a rookie. This is notable. However, he is a very strong-looking rookie in an offense where there isn't really much competition for that number 1 receiver spot. With who I think is a very good quarterback in Kyler Murray, I feel like Marvin Harrison is going to be a very great value pick here. Do I think he's going to finish top 5? Probably not. But I think he is going to have some insane production this season and is really going to prove why he went so high in this year's draft. 7th round, we see quarterback Anthony Richardson go at the 3rd pick. Tight end Mark Andrews go at the 4th. Then wide receiver Drake London, tight end Trey McBride, And running backs, David Montgomery and Alvin Kamara. Kamara going back to the Hoagies this year. In round 8, the Hoagies start off by taking rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. Then we see wide receivers Jalen Waddle and DK Metcalf, running back DeAndre Swift, and wide receivers Chris Olave and DJ Moore. So in round 8, pretty much we're looking for depth at this point. We have most of our starters set other than kicker and defense, so we're just looking for good players in case players go down with injury, or if they just struggle or have bad matchups or anything. So with the 7th pick of the 8th round, we take Devonta Smith out of the Eagles, who is a very strong receiver, even though he doesn't look very strong. He's a very thin guy, but he puts up really good numbers with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Finishing in the top 20 last year, finishing 9th in 2022. I don't expect him to be an every week starter for receiver for us, but if we have players with buys, if we have players with injuries, if somebody starts struggling or has a bad matchup, I feel like he'll be a very strong sub-in for our receiver slots. With the 8th pick of the 8th round, we see wide receiver Amari Cooper going to the Pizza People and tight end Kyle Pitts going with the 1st pick of the 9th round. So like I said, we're just looking for depth at this point. We got our first backup receiver, so now at this point we're looking for our first backup running back. And I think there's one running back who is getting very overlooked this year. Pretty strong running back in his history in the NFL. Struggled a little last year, but is going to a different team this year. And I really feel like he probably won't have the same production he's had throughout his career, but I think he'll have good enough production this year. So we take Aaron Jones out of Minnesota, and that still looks wrong to me. But again, I think he's getting overlooked. He struggled a bit last year, but in an offense where their projected starting quarterback J.J. McCarthy got hurt, where now they're stuck with Sam Darnold this season, I have a feeling Aaron Jones is going to get a good amount of usage on the ground. And if he doesn't, it's not a very high pick we're spending on him. So it won't be that much lost if he doesn't perform well this year. But either way, he's our pick. We're sticking with it. So our roster recap as of now, we have Hurts at quarterback, Saquon and Achane at running back, Mike Evans and Marvin Harrison Jr. at receiver, Dalton Kincaid at tight end, and Kyler Murray sitting in our super flex position. We don't have a kicker yet. We don't have a defense yet. I don't think either have gone off the board yet. We have Devonta Smith at receiver on our bench and Aaron Jones at running back on our bench. So in the 9th round, we see it started off by two running backs. I can't talk. We're going to restart. So in the 9th round here, we see it started off by two running backs, Kenneth Walker and Najee Harris. Then we have tight end Evan Ingram, wide receiver George Pickens, quarterback Kirk Cousins, Kirko Chains. And then we see another rookie going to the Hoagies here, with the 8th pick being wide receiver Malik Neighbors. Then in the 10th round, we see running back James Conner going to the Hoagies to start it off. And the first defense off the board here to the Snare Serpents, being the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then with the 3rd back is running back Ramondre Stevenson, quarterback Trevor Lawrence with the 4th. And then the second defense here being the 49ers going to Vigilantes. So we can see defense and kickers starting to go off the board already here. Then with the 6th pick is tight end Brock Bowers. So with our 10th round pick, this team last year were named the Meat Tanks. Last year, there were 2 rookies in the NFL with the name Tank. We're taking one of them here, wide receiver Tank Dell out of Houston. Not a very high pick. I'm not going to be too upset about this no matter how he performs because number one, he is a tank coming back to the meat tanks. He was on this team last year. He really got us some wins last year with big games. And whether or not he can get back to that form this year, I'll be happy with taking him here. Yeah, last year he had 5 games over 20 points, being a rookie receiver. And even if he has more competition with Stephon Diggs this year, I'm more than happy to take him here and welcome him back to the meat tank. With the 8th pick in the 10th round, we see the Pizza People taking the defense of the Dallas Cowboys. And then the first pick of the 11th round sees Terry McLaurin going off the board. I was considering taking Terry with the next pick. However, we are a little loaded up at receiver at this point, and I felt more of a need to fill in our starting spots. And what better way to do that than to take kicker Justin Tucker out of the Ravens, number one kicker in the league. Probably hasn't finished as number one as kicker in fantasy for a while. However, I'm not upset with this. He is in an offense that I expect to be scoring a lot with Lamar, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews is back. I feel like Isaiah Likely might end up breaking out. I feel like this offense is going to score a lot, and at the very least, he's going to get a lot of extra points for us. So, the rest of the 11th round starts off with 2 wide receivers being Nico Collins and T. Higgins. Then we see the Jets defense going with the 5th pick, and the second kicker off the board being Harrison Butker with the 6th. Running back Tony Pollard and tight end Dallas Goedert bring up the rear of this round. Then the 12th round, we see Chris Godwin going to the Hoagies, Pat Freiermuth going to the Snare Serpents, the Buccaneers defense going off the board, tight ends Jake Ferguson and Cole Kmet going, and the Ravens defense going with the 6th pick. So the round of defense and tight ends here, really. And we will add to that with our 12th round pick, choosing the... With our 12th round pick, honestly, I'm looking for some players that I think might break out that people are overlooking. And one of them that I see right now, at least obvious to me, is Ladd McConkey out of the Chargers. This Chargers offense lost their 2 biggest receivers this offseason, and they gained a coach which, yes, he likes to run the ball a lot. However, they have a very strong quarterback in Justin Herbert. And I would expect them to still use him to some extent. And with Ladd McConkey looking like he's going to end up as the receiver 1 at the least by the end of the season, I feel like he's a strong value pick in the 12th round here. With the 8th pick in the 12th round, we see Nick Chubb going off the board to the Pizza People. He started off the season on their team last year with a very suspect trade happening as soon as he got injured. However, Nick Chubb, when he gets healthy, may end up being a big weapon for the Browns here, and he may end up being a strong player for the Pizza People. It all depends on when he gets healthy, though. We also see tight end Dalton Schultz going with the first round of the 13th pick. With the first pick of the 13th round here, we see Dalton Schultz. With our 13th round pick, we see the Cleveland Browns defense coming off the board. Number one, this defense is incredibly strong. They have really made up for what was a struggling Browns offense last year. They have Myles Garrett leading the helm there, who is one of, if not the best edge rushers in the NFL, and they get to play the Steelers offense twice a year. So I really think this defense is going to be big for us. The rest of the 13th round sees Javonte Williams going, kicker Jake Elliott, wide receiver Zay Flowers, running back Zamir White, kicker Chris Boswell, and wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Then, in the 14th round, we see running back Austin Eckler, the veteran who found a new team this year, leading it off. Then we see the Philly defense going. Tight end Luke Musgrave, Evan McPherson, the kicker, going right after that. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers off his Achilles injury. And kicker Jake Moody bringing up the 6th pick here. So with our 14th pick, we still need to find a backup quarterback, and I'm very surprised to find this player here with this pick. Last year, he finished 10th in the league for quarterbacks. He really revived his career with his team last year, and of course, that player is Baker Mayfield of the Buccaneers. 10th, quarterback 10 last year, and the fact that he's this late in the draft is insane. Him and Mike Evans really, I feel like, have a great connection that we're going to see pay off more and more. Whether or not the team finds a lot of success, whether or not this team finds a lot of success, you have to admit Baker Mayfield is a steal with the penultimate pick of the 14th round. Just to end off the 14th round, we see kicker Younghoe Koo going to the Pizza People, and wide receiver Adam Thielen, who is more of a like personal pick for them. They've always had Adam Thielen on their team, so I understand wanting to bring him in. And we see And with our pick in the 15th round, we're looking for a backup tight end. And we will find David Njoku here from the Browns, who is a monster on and off the field. Last year, he finished 6th in the league for tight ends, which, again, I am amazed that he fell this far because of that. He also, last year, came into a game after just suffering full-body burns and played that full game, went off in that game, I think. He played the full game with his whole body being completely burned. Not completely, but full body burns, played a full game of football. I have a lot of respect for him, and I am very happy to get him as our backup tight end here. The rest of the 15th round sees quarterback Deshaun Watson going to the Armada, the Chiefs defense with the 4th pick, then wide receiver Christian Kirk, quarterback Justin Fields, a very interesting pick there, kicker Kaimi Fairbairn, and the Dolphins defense bringing up the rear. The 16th round starts with kicker Cameron Dicker going to the Hoagies out of the Los Angeles Chargers. Second pick is tight end Chigoziem Okonkwo. With the 3rd pick, we see Keenan Allen, a wide receiver. With the 4th pick, running back Raheem Mostert. Kind of surprised to see him fall this far, but here he is. 5th pick is kicker Tyler Bass, and with the 6th pick, surprised to see him fall this far for sure, Rashee Rice coming in to the Armada. The final 2 picks of the draft. We have the penultimate pick here. And we will take the steal of the draft here, taking the king himself, Tank Bigsby, out of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The best running back this league has ever seen. Absolutely going to carry this team. Absolutely going to take us to a championship. The king. As I said, 2 rookies named Tank last year, both of which proving that they're incredible at their own position. Tank Bigsby is really going to win us our championship this year. And if you disagree, just you watch. And with the final pick, we see tight end TJ Hawkinson going to the Pizza People. So, we see our roster recap here. Once again, we have Jalen Hurts at starting quarterback, Saquon Barkley and Davon Achane at running back, Mike Evans and Marvin Harrison Jr. at receiver, Dalton Kincaid at tight end, Kyler Murray our Superflex, Justin Tucker at kicker, and the Browns defense in the starting position. On our bench, we have receiver Devonta Smith, running back Aaron Jones, receivers Tank Dell and Lad McConkey, quarterback Baker Mayfield, and tight end David Njoku, with our king, our captain, running back Tank Bigsby. Going into the other teams, we see the Stone Oven Pizza people here, with Josh Allen at quarterback, Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor at running back, a very scary duo, Michael Pittman and Cooper Kupp at receiver, Kyle Pitts at tight end with Justin Herbert at quarterback, Younghoe Koo at kicker, the Cowboys defense starting, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper, and Terry McLaurin at wide receiver on the bench, Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb at running back on the bench, and Dalton Schultz and TJ Hawkinson at tight end. We'll probably see Nick Chubb and Hawkinson go to the IR. They are both injured to start the season, so we'll probably see them go to the IR as the Pizza people pick up other players. However, as of now, this is how it stands. The Armada comes in with quarterback Dak Prescott, running backs Breece Hall and Rachaad White, wide receivers Tyreek Hill and Garrett Wilson, Sam Laporta starting at tight end, Anthony Richardson at the Superflex, Jake Moody and the Ravens defense in at kicker and defense. On the bench, we see wide receiver DJ Moore, running back Kenneth Walker, wide receivers Nico Collins and Rashee Rice, I can't talk, quarterback Deshaun Watson, tight end Brock Bowers, and running back Javonte Williams. The Vigilantes roster starts off with their first round pick with quarterback Joe Burrow, running backs Jahmyr Gibbs and Isaiah Pacheco. The LSU boys with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase at receiver, Mark Andrews bringing up tight end, and yet another LSU player with Jaden Daniels in the Superflex. Jake Elliott's their kicker with the 49ers defense starting. On their bench, they have Chris Olave at receiver, Najee Harris at running back, T. Higgins at receiver, Cole Kmet at tight end, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, the Chiefs defense, and kicker Tyler Bass. Purloiner's Pride, the newcomer, starts off here with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. They have Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon at running back, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Puka Nacua at receiver, Evan Ingram as their tight end, Brock Purdy in their Superflex, Evan McPherson is their kicker, and the New York Jets as their defense. They have wide receiver Drake London, running back DeAndre Swift, Zay Flowers and Christian Kirk as receivers, quarterback Trevor Lawrence, tight end Jake Ferguson, and running back Raheem Mostert on their bench. The other newcomer here, the Rat Wizards, start off with quarterback C.J. Stroud, the young stud at quarterback. Then they have Christian McCaffrey and James Cook at running back. Wide receivers are A.J. Brown and Brandon Ayuk, with Trey McBride at tight end and Jordan Love in their Superflex. They have kicker Harrison Butker and the Buccaneers defense starting, with wide receiver DK Metcalf, running back Ramondre Stevenson, wide receivers George Pickens and Keenan Allen, quarterback Justin Fields, tight end Luke Musgrave, and running back Zamir White on their bench. The Snare Serpents have quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Their running backs are Travis Etienne and David Montgomery, with wide receivers CeeDee Lamb and Stephon Diggs, tight end George Kittle, and Jared Goff, the quarterback in their Superflex. Their kicker is Chris Boswell, with the Steelers defense starting. Their bench includes wide receiver Jalen Waddle, coming back to this team from last year, along with Tua Tagovailoa, running back Tony Pollard, tight end Pat Freiermuth, the Eagles defense, quarterback Kirk Cousins, tight end Chigoziem Okonkwo, and kicker Kaimi Fairbairn. And the reigning champion of the league, the Hoagies, bring up quarterback Kyler. Wow, I just read Kyron and Lamar and mixed them. And the reigning champion of the league, the Hoagies, bring up Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Running backs Kyron Williams and Alvin Kamara, the returner to this team, at running back. Devontae Adams and Debo Samuel at receiver, tight end Travis Kelce, quarterback Matthew Stafford, the Dolphins defense and Cameron Dicker starting at kicker. The bench here includes wide receiver Malik Neighbors, running back James Conner, wide receiver Chris Godwin, another wide receiver in Calvin Ridley, who I have a vendetta against from last year. Quarterback Caleb Williams, tight end Dallas Goedert, and running back Austin Eckler. So we're going to look at our Week 1 matchups. We start off with the Hoagies versus the Purwinners Pride. The Hoagies are projected at 170.51, with the Purwinners Pride projected to win at 173.48. The Armada and the Vigilantes are up next, with the Armada projected to win at 179.2, and the Vigilantes projected to trail at 171.51. Then we have the Snare Serpents versus the Rat Wizards. Snare Serpents are projected 166.35, and the Rat Wizards projected to win in a large margin at 178.91. Then we face off against the Stone Oven Pizza People, with them projected to win at 172.25, with us projected to get 167.32. I do feel like we have a very good chance to win this game. However, we'll see how this goes. So everybody, thank you for watching not our Week 1 recap, our draft recap. And I hope you all stick around to see how the league goes. We'll be doing weekly recaps. We'll be talking about updates with the team, kind of talk about fantasy in general. And yeah, I just hope everyone sticks around to see how this all goes down. So thank you for watching, and see you at the end of Week 1.